Data entry is one of the most basic things we do in Excel, and at times it can be boring, but there are some techniques, some shortcuts, and a feature called AutoFill that are really going to help. Before we do this in this particular worksheet, it's called data entry. It's an empty sheet. We're in the workbook O2, entering data. In the lower right-hand corner is a slider bar. There's a black rectangle there. If you hold down the left mouse button, you can zoom in or zoom out. We're only going to be using about 7 columns here as we build a small little worksheet here. So that's good enough. I'm going to be putting in some data in cell A2. I can either click on A2 or use the arrow keys to make that cell become the active one. I type sales. Notice it's on the left-hand side of the cell. That's what happens automatically in Excel unless you're typing values. I press enter. I could press tab to move to the right. I can press any of the arrow keys. I'm moving down a column, so I'll press enter. And then type overhead. And enter, and then profits. Enter. A bit later, I decide to change overhead to the word expenses. I'll click there. We don't have to erase it. I'll just type right over it. Now, maybe I spell it the British way, the Canadian way. That's okay, but later I decide to change that. We don't have to retype it, although that's relatively short. To edit a cell, you can either click on it and then go into the formula bar, click in the appropriate spot, make some changes, or you can double click near the entry and do the editing right in the cell. I'm going to double click behind the C, double click, backspace, S, and enter. I'm going to be putting in some numbers, and caps lock has just been on maybe. The number I'm going to type is 120, and I happen to press O instead of 0. They're right next to each other on the keyboard. I tab over, 160. Typing this one correctly, tab, and you can see the difference. Numerical entries in Excel, when entered, always are right aligned. We learned that way back in the 2nd grade before adding and subtracting and eventually multiplying. Let's just do this all over again. 1, 2, 0. If it's not purely numerical or if it's not a formula, Excel will left align it. Numbers are right aligned. All right, I'm going to be putting in 4 numbers, and as I move to the right here, I'll be pressing tab. So I type the 160, tab, 210, tab, 250, tab, 325, and 440. And after the last entry, I'll press enter. And then 6 more numbers here, starting in cell B3. And then pressing enter after the last one. I'm going to be putting in monthly names across the top, so I'll type January and tab over. Now, a shortcut that you wouldn't know about falls under the heading of AutoFill. Anytime you have a month spelled out or a 3-letter abbreviation, you can point to the lower right-hand corner of that cell. That's called the fill handle. Notice how the mouse pointer changes its shape, becomes thinner. Holding down the left mouse button, I'm dragging across. Those little pop-ups below suggest what's about to happen. We'll get the other months, and we could drag all the way out to December and even beyond. It'll start over again. And we can do this in a variety of different ways. You can start with any month you want, and you can use a 3-letter abbreviation. If I type in JUL, and then point to that lower right-hand corner and click and drag, you probably have guessed already what we're about to see here. Same thing happens rightward. If you drag rightward or downward, same thing happens. If you drag upward, I'll drag upward from here. We go backward in time. Same thing happens if we drag leftward. So you quickly get used to that. It also works with days of the week. And also, we can use the letter Q and the number 1 in a variety of combinations. And you can actually use any of the numbers 1 through 4 because Excel only cycles through those numbers as we use that feature. And of course, we're meaning quarter. And the same thing works with QTR and any combination of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the word quarter in that same combination of 1, 2, 3, or 4. So these are handy techniques. And of course, these are often used for column headings and row headings. So some shortcuts with AutoFill and just some basic thoughts and ideas about how we do. Excel has a great deal of computational capability when you work with dates and times. On this worksheet called Dates Times in the workbook 02 Entering Data, there's a date in cell B2. It's got slashes in it and refers to August 10th, 2018. In different cultures, you can display these differently so that the day is first. Now, anytime you're entering dates, you want to use slash or dash. If I type this same entry with a dash, 8-10-18, enter, I'll get the same display. Anytime you use slash or dash, Excel evaluates that information as if it could be a date. And if it is, it aligns it on the right-hand side of the cell. If you type a date that doesn't exist, for example, November 31st, I'll even type in the 4-digit year here. When I press enter, Excel does something a little different. But the difference here is so subtle you wouldn't notice it. I do recommend in any column that has a date, from time to time, particularly during the data entry phase, keep that column a bit wider. I'm going to drag the boundary between B and C to the right, and that pops out. That is not a date. In effect, Excel is saying that's just a bunch of characters. Behind the scenes, and you don't need to know too much about this, but every single date has a separate value, starting January 1st, 1900. And that means when you're entering this is actually a value. That's partially the reason why this is right aligned. And because it is a value, you can write formulas that refer to this. Or if you have two different dates, you could subtract them to calculate the difference. I think you can recognize how important that is in banking and finance and all kinds of different endeavors. If I write a formula right here, and I know some of you haven't yet worked with formulas, I'm going to type equal B2, that's this cell, plus 100. I'm going to be getting a date that's 100 days after August 10th. And there it is, November 18th. That's 100 days later. The formula adds 100 to it. And I just as easily could have subtracted that 100 also. When you work with times, enter them with colons. Now, you may choose to type AM, PM. If you're more familiar and prefer that style, you would type this same entry here as 4 colon 43 space P. And of course, if we're AM, space A, so on. So you can use either style, and you can adjust them or switch when necessary as well, too. And here, too, behind the scenes, you actually have entered a value. It's a fractional part of the day. So if you were to type in, for example, 6 p.m., that's 3/4 of the day. The number 0.75 is being stored in the background. Maybe a little bit of trivia there, but still, as we enter these, and we do them in a standard way, using colons for time and using slash or dash with date, we will be able to work with these times and dates in a productive way. And on the Formulas tab in the ribbon, there are a whole bunch of functions related to date and time. We can calculate working days, net working days, not counting holidays, all kinds of features here related to dates and times, because it's a vital ingredient in many an Excel worksheet. Do data entry and editing in Excel. When working with Excel, sometimes you'll make a mistake. I know I do. And from time to time, we've got a real life-saving feature available. It's called undo, and it's got a companion called redo. So imagine I'm a novice user of Excel. For whatever reason, I've got these cells highlighted, and I want to get rid of the word sales. I don't really have to do that. I could type over it, but I'm thinking that's the only cell there. If I press delete, shouldn't it get rid of the word sales? It looks different than the other ones to the right. I press delete. Well, obviously, that's in retrospect. I don't want to do that. So what do? Two different ways. There is a keystroke shortcut, Control-Z. I could press that now. At the top of the screen in the quick access toolbar, you will have an undo button. It's a counterclockwise arrow. When you slide over it, you'll see the word undo followed by the action that was taken most recently, in this case, clear, and notice keystroke shortcut. So I'll click it. And undo can remember up to 100 of your last steps. Now, it's highly unlikely you'd ever want to go back that far. And most Excel users, I think, only occasionally go back 3 or 4 steps. If you undo more than you wanted to undo, the category to the right here is called redo. Now, I just undid the clear, but I just undid falls into this category of redo. So I could undo the undo or redo, do it that way. The keystroke shortcut for redo is Control-Y. Now, as it turns out, of course, I wouldn't want to keep that, so I'll press Control-Z or that undo arrow at the top of the screen. So it's a really handy feature. It doesn't work for every single command, although it works for most of the commands. I'd say well over 90%. One category of commands that you can't undo relate to sheet tabs. Now, you might not be too familiar with these, but at the bottom of the screen, if I right-click on the current worksheet, which is called Undo Redo, I could delete the sheet, and I cannot undo that. Rename, well, I can't really undo it, but I can come back and change the name. So these features don't fall into the category of actions that we can undo. And there are also some features on the View tab, like freeze panes. Some of these we can't undo, but we can certainly take other actions to, in effect, come back to the same place that we want to come back to. So it's a valuable feature, and no question, at different times we make mistakes, and undo, and to a lesser extent redo, are really valuable. There could be one example, too, where you might create a chart that looks a certain way. You'll change the chart. You might want to sort of bounce back and forth between the two. Sometimes you use Control-Z and Control-Y back and forth. It's kind of a toggle. Or you could be using those buttons as well. But no question, a feature you'll use widely in Excel. When you start using Excel, you're likely to see a screen something like this. And if you choose Blank Workbook, you'll have a blank workbook. It's likely to have a name like Book 1, sometimes Book 2, Book 3, if you create other workbooks later. Now, I'm going to put in a minimal amount of data here. I'll type in sales right here, then expenses, and then profits. And right here, I'll put in January and drag that off to the right. I'll get to the numbers later, and I'll zoom in. That slider bar in the lower right-hand corner, drag that to the right. Now, periodically when you work with Excel, you need to save your work. If there's a power failure right now, or if I accidentally turn off the computer, I've got to do this all over again. And what if I had filled in a lot of numbers here and formulas? What if it's a lot bigger and I haven't saved? When it comes time to save, though, you go to the File tab. There are two commands. Which one should we use, save or save as? If there's any doubt whatsoever about which command to use, always use save as. I'll use it here, but when you're saving a file for the first time, it makes no difference which one because they both take you to the same location. When we go to Save As, your screen might look something like this. Again, there could be some differences here. I'm going to click Browse. One of the three things that we are concerned with when we save a file is where are we saving it? Is it on a flash drive? Is it on a hard drive? Is it on a network somewhere? Some of the previous choices out here could have led us down some of those paths. But if there's any question whatsoever about where we're trying to save it, or what the name of the file is going to be, or what the format of the file is going to be, that's when we want to use File Save As. And again, the first time you use File Save on a file that has not been saved at all, you're led here anyway. We need to give it a name. Book 1 isn't very descriptive. The name can have up to 255 characters. Stay away from most of the special characters. Dash and underline certainly work, but not slash and asterisk and most of those. So we give it an appropriate name. Maybe I'll call this Sales Report. And you can have spaces in the name as well too. Rarely, but occasionally, you might need to save this in a different format. I click the drop arrow to the right of where we see Excel Workbook. Now, there could be situations where you need to save your file in a format readable by someone who has an older version of Excel, or you've got some kind of a Macintosh need here, or something that meets one of these other needs. We don't. And for most people, that's never a concern. Where we want to save it, again, screens will look different, but it might go into this folder or that folder, and you can scroll up and down and see various locations as to where you might want to save the file. We've given it a name, we click Save, and that name appears at the top of the screen. Well, imagine we put in some more numbers. I'm not going to do any more typing here, but we've done some more of this, and we need to save. What we really mean most of the time after saving a file for the first time is simply update. We don't see that term in the menu, but we can go to File, Save, and simply do that. Automatically, this is updated. Even better and slightly faster is the icon on the left side of the Quick Access toolbar, Save. Notice it has a keystroke shortcut, Control S. If you've got lots of data on your screen and you click that, there's a slight pause and you'll see an indicator at the bottom of the screen, and then the file is saved. So most of the time, after saving a file for the first time, we're not trying to change its location or its name. We use File Save. But anytime we need any of those other three changes, either to the location or the name of the file or the file type, we use File Save As.